Welcome back to Holistic Healing Association. I'm Erin Darcy. I'm certified in somatic processing and clinical hypnosis. Today we're going to be talking about self-care, why your self-care may not be working and how to fix it. We are going to be addressing the impact of stress can have on a person in the healing journey.
I'm Athina Weiss from Athina's Wellness Wisdom, and I'm really happy to be talking about self-care today and stress because I think this is something that everybody in the world can relate to on some degree. The way the world is set, at least in Western provinces where we're from, North America, Canada specifically, there's a lot going on for people. And, this push with like cell phones in our pocket, computers in our pockets, this new digital era that we're kind of in. Everything happens so fast, and and that kind of is that can cause stress. Everybody's trying to do the next best thing, trying to get ahead in life, and things just keep getting more expensive, and that's something that causes stress for people. So I think pretty much everybody, there's not too many people out there, nobody I know anyways, can say that they live a completely stress-free life. And so one of the things we can do to combat this stressful life that we're living is to really focus on our self-care. And sometimes when people hear self-care, the first thing they think about, is just, oh, having a bubble bath and letting all your worries disappear. But it goes so much deeper than that. And that's what I really want to touch on today. Because self-care basically directly affects, how your body handles stress, how your immune system functions, the type of sleep you're getting, and, also just this level of taking care of yourself so that you can show up for others. I just find that, such an important topic, and I'm sure that we're going to, cover a lot of things, and yeah, it's just really important.
And what is the impact on stress on a person?
So I've been, I think I would talk about like my healing journey in the last 6 years because that's when I kind of realized and have been able to, look at my life and look at the way stress was affecting it. And that's when I really started to, care about combating the stress and doing things to combat it. Um, some of you may know that I've been on this podcast before and on other podcasts, but my mom passed away when I was 14 and she died from cancer. And it was the second time that she had cancer. So I find this pretty significant because the first time that she had it, my brothers and I were a lot younger. I think I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. And so I feel like at that time she didn't have a career. She was kind of a stay-at-home mom, and I feel like that helped her, combat it in a sense that really the amount of stresses that she had in her life were a lot lower. She still did get sick in the first place, but she was able to overcome it. Then when it came to about 10 years later, I would say, and the cancer came back, she was at a very different place in her life. She had a full-time career at that point. Her kids were a little bit older, but she still did everything for us, um, as far as caring for the house. At that time, we had about 10 or 15 horses and race horses in training. She was the primary person that took care of that business. She helped my dad basically run his businesses. And yeah, there was just a lot of stress in the household and everything. And another part of that too is, they didn't catch it as early on that second time. So there's chronic stress, which is something that, chronic means it's ongoing. It's something that slowly kind of builds up and builds up and builds up. So with stress, maybe we don't realize that we're skipping meals. For one, might not have that. You don't think of it at first, oh, it's okay, I'll just skip a meal. Or on the flip side of that, it's one thing when you can, sit at home and make, a nice using fresh ingredients to make your food. Whereas if you don't have time, you're going to go to McDonald's, you're going to stop for fast food and eating these processed easy foods, your dinner from a box that's pre-made for you and has all these extra ingredients in it. And those are things, and that's what stress does to us, that's what not taking care of ourselves does to us. These little things add up. Same thing with missing sleep. Like when my mom started working with racehorses, she's up at, like, I worked with racehorses for a large portion of my life. We're up at, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You get to the barn by 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You do a lot of work in a short amount of time. And then, once the morning work's done, maybe you go home, maybe you don't, and you come back. And at that time, when she was alive, they were racing 5 days a week. So, there's that extra added. She'd probably be working 15, 16-hour days plus all the other tasks that she had to do. And so, those things all combine um, into this lack of caring for yourself, and that's going to have huge effects on yourself. Lack of sleep has been researched to be so detrimental to people. They recommend that adults get, an average of 8 hours sleep, but I have this fun watch that I wear that tells me, so many days I'm getting 6 hours, 7 hours, and I know how that's affecting me, and still it's so hard to make that change, to go to bed early and give
Sleep
yourself that
is
extra
critical.
time. Sleep is critical.
And I know Lynn, who was just on our channel, she had experienced a nervous breakdown, and she said a big part of that was because of diet and lack of sleep.
Hmm.
And she said that if you start to have sleep problems, that's a huge warning sign
Hmm.
to check your nervous system, notice what's happening, and get help.
Hmm. Our bodies do send us warning signs. We just have to, listen to them. And that's when chronic stress happens, and these chronic issues, when they're going on for a long period of time, you know and then we start to see these changes in our health and sleeping patterns. That's our body's way of telling you, hey, red flag, come and look at me, like I need help.
Exactly. And many of us ignore it because
Hmm.
we're so busy focused on other things. We're not focused enough on our own well being,
Hmm.
right?
And all of this
And
has been extensively researched too, like there's tons and tons of scientific data out there, research papers, all talking about sleep, talking about eating healthy. And these are all forms of self-care. It doesn't stop just at doing things you like. It's all of these things. It's taking time to eat healthy. It's taking time to get to move and exercise. So many
exercise is
issues with our
huge.
digestion. Yeah, are from a sedentary lifestyle, and that's how we've changed. Lots of people's jobs, even after the COVID pandemic, lots of people work from home now. So, you don't even have to get up, walk to your car, walk to work, do all of these things. You can literally just sit in the house and, not move. And that has such a huge effect on our health and well-being as well. So
It's so
self-care can be getting up and moving.
it's so true. I notice if I'm in my house even for a day or two without leaving, I start to feel it differently emotionally. Now, I'm a
Hmm.
huge outdoors person and I'm a person that needs to move, but movement and being in nature is critical. I know one of the best sources to decrease stress for me is running in the woods. Even for EP sessions, that's one of the resources I will use is I'll bring back a memory of just me and my dogs running through the woods because it's peace, it's nature, and it's movement. And your body needs to move. And you may not like running, a lot of people don't, hiking in nature, swimming. skiing, kayaking, canoeing, rock climbing, whatever works for you, whatever your type of movement is, because I believe there's something out there for everyone. Even if you haven't found it, there's some type of movement, maybe dance, that allows you to be able to express yourself, allows your body to move how it wants to move, and just release the stress.
Yeah. So that's a good point that self-care is going to look different for every single person out there.
It is. And the impact that stress can have, like it can, again, like when we feel stress, often we lose sleep. So it compounds, right?
Hmm.
We may eat poor a diet. We may self isolate. We may get angry at people, be irritable. Our nervous system will have a huge impact. Our bodies may shake. Our immune system, it can impact our immune system. It can impact our health. It impacts everything, all aspects, right? It can impact our parenting. It can impact our relationships, our marriages. It can have a profound impact on us long term. And that's why self care is so important. And I know the healing journey is no easy walk in the park, always. It can be difficult, and there can be uphill battles, but it's just taking one step at a time and just moving forward a little bit at a time and looking at your nervous system. And why is it so important when we're trying to heal from stress and trauma that we look at the mind, body, and soul? Why is it important for self care to look at all three?
Yeah, so I think this is kind of touches on the mind-body connection, and body-soul connection, and just the fact that we have to really, like we said, stress and self-care is all encompassing for the entire person. So for me, that's our feelings, the way we feel about ourselves. That's our thinking. Sometimes a form of self-care is just reframing our thought patterns, and it's our doing and behaving. Really, you need to address all three of those to encompass and to be able to change our whole lives and our whole person in essence. um, Changing one of those things can affect the other two, but I do feel that you need to be able to address all three, feeling, thinking, and doing, in order to really change your life, and just to address all three of those and become aware of all three of those in order for things to fully happen. We can talk about stress all day and we can talk about ways to implement self-care all day, but if we're not actually doing anything in order to implement those and coming up with a plan, then it's we're not going to be able to help. And then to make that deeper, you really need to address the feeling side of things too, because you said the word EP before. For anyone who doesn't know, that's embodied processing. That's a type of somatic inquiry that we're both certified in. And that just kind of talks about the fact that our unconscious is stored in our body. Our conscious mind is what we kind of already we know about, we think and about, and we can kind of relate to. But everything else, you can kind of think of it as an iceberg. Like your conscious mind is just that tip of the iceberg out of the water, but your body holds all the unconscious, and that's everything underneath. So even for me, when I was talking back about my healing journey, something profound about me was for my husband and I were together for 15 years before we decided we wanted to have children. And a big reason of that unconsciously was stored in my body, that I was afraid that, my mom got cancer and passed away early. I was afraid that I was going to get cancer and pass away early. and that was had this huge effect on my entire life, which I didn't even really know. It was this feeling stored inside of me that consciously I didn't know. So once I brought awareness to that, through it was a hypnotherapy session, that got me started, really realizing, and by going back to that time when I lost my mother and really like, you know, using comprehension to get into these unconscious parts of me, that, I realized that, and learning about stress and stress's effect even on even if you have the genes in your body for cancer, stress can determine whether those genes get turned on or not. That's called epigenetics. It's scientifically researched phenomenon, basically. And once I had that awareness, that cognition about that unconscious belief, then I was able to change the way I behaved. I needed all three of those together before I felt confident that, I wanted to try to start for a family. And so my husband and I talked about it, and we ended up getting pregnant and having a daughter. And it's cliche to say that people always say afterwards, but I absolutely cannot imagine my life the way living, the rest of my life before having my daughter and just going through, because, that life for me had very little purpose and very little meaning. But I needed to change on all three of those levels to get there. And now, my life is a whole different phenomenon, and I'm able to really experience life, more fully. I have more purpose and meaning in my life. Um, to say that, yeah, it brings on a whole bunch of different new stresses, but having that capacity, we all need stress in our life. I guess this is an important time to touch on that. There is
True.
such a thing as good stress. Yeah, we need that stress, that one level of stress, before it becomes incapacitating. It actually helps you grow. That's what helps us grow and evolve, is having that stress in our life. So it's
That's
just
true. Very strong
maintaining
point.
it. Yeah. And, having the tools to regulate that amount of stress. And an important tool in that is self care.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And is for me, I would say for mind, body, and soul. For mind, it's learning and growing, and also being aware of our thoughts, because many of us can experience negative thoughts towards ourselves and others, and just being aware of it and asking ourselves, is that true? Or is that 100% true? And being very aware, because often we have so many thoughts going through our head, we're not even fully aware that we're thinking it and how it can be impacting our nervous system. Body, we already covered. Sleep, diet, so nutrition. That doesn't mean trying to lose weight or trying to gain weight. It means having a very healthy, balanced nutrition diet. And soul, prayer, bringing prayer into your daily life, spending time with God, and helping other people. And looking at our capacity so that we're not overdoing it to the point that it's hurting ourselves and causing more stress. And everyone will have a different capacity, and that's okay because we're all at different places at life. And one day we may have more capacity than another. One day we may have the capacity to smile at a stranger and open a door. And that's okay. That's completely fine. Another time we may have capacity to go help the homeless or go help a child that is in need. Right? There are so many opportunities out there that we can go and volunteer. When we're struggling ourselves, if we have the capacity, and we don't always, and that's fine, but to go help people, go volunteer, because what that does, and is again, it's scientifically proven, is it gives us purpose, it gives us meaning, it gives us peace. Right before the interview, we were just talking. When I see someone that needs help, if I don't help them, it doesn't give me peace. I'm doing it to help them, but it's also helping me because I would feel guilt. And we're all interconnected. We're all brothers and sisters. So when I'm helping them, in a sense, I'm helping someone else, and I may be also helping myself. And if we can all look at it as if we're all connected and we're all interconnected, do we not all want to live like that and try and help and with the capacity we have? So that doesn't mean people pleasing. That doesn't mean going past our limit. And everyone's going to have a different capacity than each other. And at different stages in our life, we're going to have more capacity than others, right? There's been earlier stages in my life that I've had far greater capacity to be able to spend more time volunteering and helping people. Right now, I'm a single mother with a 4-year-old daughter. I will help people when I see the opportunity. I want to help, but I'm not and I guess I do help, I guess, with the Big Brother, Big Sister program. But normally, if I had more capacity, I'd want to be doing more. But I don't have the capacity right now in my life. Right now, I need more peace and quiet and calm. Um, and everyone's different. Once my little daughter is a teenager, maybe I'll have greater capacity and I can go volunteer at the Humane Society, or I can go volunteer who knows what with my church, with whatever, right? And everyone's different. But it's just maybe being more self-aware of what brings me purpose, what brings you purpose in life, what gives you meaning, and how can I help make a difference?
Yeah, definitely. Those are very important questions to be asking ourselves. And like we've been saying, just that self care does look different for everyone. I do, when you were talking there, brought up another point for myself is just part of self care is setting boundaries and
Yes,
knowing what your own capacity is
that's
and taking
important.
the time to really, yeah, think about what is important in your own life, what brings you happiness, what brings you relaxation, what you're able to do, but not going too far. Because some of the people that struggle the most with self care are people that may be labeled as people pleasers,
Mm-hmm.
people that want to do so much for everyone else, but then they don't take that time for themselves. You brought up, the thought of guilt. That's kind of like that goes hand in hand with this because it's a very, very normal response. And that's what a lot of people, I think, will resonate with. And so it's just, taking that moment and knowing that you can only give so much that you have to give,
And looking at your
and yeah,
boundaries,
looking at
listening
your
to your
back.
body and where you're able
Yeah,
to do and not able to do,
exactly.
right? Because your body
Yeah.
will tell you what your boundaries are, because everyone's boundaries are different, and your body will tell you what your
Hmm.
capacity is. Because your mind may want to
Exactly.
do a lot more,
Exactly.
right? A lot more. Because I know sometimes my mind will go like, whoa, like I want to look at this, I want to do all this.
Yeah.
That can shut you down. Because like I know just recently we were discussing the amount of stress I was under. It's like shut down. Like now I need to slow
Hmm.
down. I can't do near as much as I'd like to. And I can suffer from that, right?
Hmm.
I was just talking to a naturopath today, actually. I'm meeting them on Tuesday. Um, but I was under a lot of stress lately, and it was compacted by other things too. Um, but she said one thing was stress and some other factors. But it's really taking care of yourself. And when you hit a max, your body will pay the price. Your nervous system will pay the price. Your mental health will pay the price. Um, and recovering, what do you do? Well, I just came back from camping. And one reason I did that is because nature, being still and quiet with my daughter and my dog. I just going out in the nature and just taking it all in. And I know when I was 15, 16 years old, I was grade 10, I experienced significant stress in my life. It was over something very simple, and but it has a profound impact on me. The teachers ran in strike and gave up sports, and that was a huge identity, is being like an athlete. And then I was like, who am I without my sports? Are people even going to like me if I can't be out there doing my sports and doing well? That was a big concern. Are people even going to like me? Um, so the peer pressure was huge. And that was a huge identity. And I suffered. But what did I do? I went camping. And that was significant. My mom had said, let's go camping. And we took off and we went camping. And it helped. So I think it's very personal, like you said. It's knowing what works for you. Camping, nature, dogs. God has been my source of strength in my life. That's what, and this again, quiet time. Taking that really, especially for a person like me that always is going, 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 it can be difficult to stop and pause. But sometimes our bodies desperately need it, because if we don't, it can have an impact, profound impact that we don't even see coming,
Mm-hmm.
unless we really need to be in tuned in our body. And that's why
Yeah,
boundaries are so important, right? And listening to your body, because your body will tell you how much how much capacity you have,
yeah.
because your mind may want to do a lot more.
Exactly. And so for me, even I know that I used to have a hard time asking for help, even when it came to, my daughter and my husband. Luckily, I have a husband, I have someone that can help me out with it. But at the same time, like, I had a hard time just asking for that help. Whereas, that's evolved now. Like I was talking to you today, that I'm taking on a lot right now too. I'm in school full time. I'm working and I'm taking care of my daughter. We have animals that we take care of as well. And I just started volunteering on a crisis line. So all of that has taken its toll on me, definitely. And I could start to feel that, my health was, having its effect. I was getting sick more often. I was having troubles with sleeping. I was trying to stay up later to do homework and stuff, fit time in. And so my husband and I talked about it, and we decided to come up with a plan where at least, 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week, we would discuss the days that I needed him to be the one that gets up early with my daughter. Does she like it? No, she cries and fights it. But at the same time, he's willing to do that hard thing in order to help me out, because I knew that that was a boundary that I needed to set with him, with myself for asking for it, and even with my daughter. She's turned 3 now. She's old enough to start learning about boundaries herself, and she's old enough we're teaching her that, mommy and daddy need to take turns. That sometimes I'll be the one to get up early with her, because generally, like, I am awake, whereas he's not awake. So I'm already awake. I feel like, oh, I should just be getting up with her because I'm already awake. Well, that doesn't matter. Even if I don't sleep, even if I just take that extra hour, hour and a half just to be alone with myself in the morning, that's huge. That is a form of self care. And for me, this brings up an extremely important part of self care. First of all, like we've been discussing, is figuring out what's going to work for you, what you need for yourself. But second of all, how do we get through living a busy life? We use a calendar and we schedule things. I've definitely needed to learn in the last few years about organization of my time management, and what, to get things done, I have to write it down on the calendar. Well, the same goes for self-care. You need to put self-care into your calendar, however many times a week. It doesn't have to be big, huge, elaborate things, but you literally need to schedule it into your week in order for it to be effective, and in order, for you to get that benefit and to make sure that you are giving that time to
Scheduling it
yourself.
in. And
So
even
important.
I agree. And even looking at glimmers, because glimmers can be very small moments, and we can take that every day. Glimmers are just small moments, small things that can help bring your nervous system into a sense of peace and calmness. So, to me, a 10-minute calm, quiet, peaceful hot bath.
Mm,
I just kind of go, ah, right? Now, my hot tub hasn't been open for a little while, but going in the hot tub, same thing. It's heat, right? Just sitting in stillness. Um,
mhm.
what are some of your glimmers?
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't have to be big, big, long things. For me, it's, before I go to bed, I make sure that I take that, 5, 10 minutes to really practice my deep breathing, and really, like, maybe a hand on the stomach, a hand on the heart, and just feeling the movement and my breath in, seeing how high I can make my stomach, my lungs fill with air before, and how low I can make it go, and just noticing that difference. And that's just something I try to do every day, every night. I'm already laying in bed anyways. I just try to, let the thoughts, maybe they come, maybe they go. I just try not to give any notice to them. And what I'm paying attention to is my deep breathing. And that's just something I do for myself. And it's just
Similar.
that little thing.
Yeah, I notice I've been trying to go into the body more often, and what it does to my mind is it
Mm-hmm.
calms my mind. So instead of all these racing thoughts, I go in my body, and I may feel some pain in there sometimes, but it gives me a sense of like calmness. So instead of like using coping mechanisms, so like going to my phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just going and listening to what's happening in the body. And it makes you become a lot more self-aware of actually what the heck's going on down there.
Mm-hmm.
And will help with your triggers too, because it helps you just become more aware of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And then, like you said too, I love being outside. I love being in nature, even just in my backyard, and just, sitting and staring at the trees and the wind. For me, that's something that I just take a minute or two and just, same thing, really try to connect with nature just
And
any
your
way I
horseback
can.
riding.
Yeah, not even horseback riding, just being around horses. I actually
Okay.
don't ride as much as I used to, yeah. But, like, because I don't feel like I need to anymore. Because
Okay.
really just being with the horses, right? And just, yeah, my life, same thing again. My horse brings on a little bit of stress. Definitely that financial stress. It's that payment that comes out every month, and you have to pay for him to live and pay for him to eat. But at the same time, it's balance and even counterbalance with the benefits I get from just, it takes me out of the house 5 days a week. We do chores. I don't get to go see him every time. Sometimes my husband will do it depending on my week. But still, to know that, I can go to this farm area and just, leave my phone in the car and just go there and just be able to spend time with him. And when he sees me, he nickers usually. And it just like fills my heart with such joy that, that I still have this, and something that, like I said, brings me out of the house, gives me that movement, cleaning his poo, that's exercise.
It's
Um,
getting you to movement.
and movement and exercise, and
And
yeah,
that
just
smell must be
time.
just lovely.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I'm used to it. I love
No,
it.
I
It's
know.
just like coming home. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
No,
sure.
I've worked with dogs for over 20 years, so I know.
Yeah,
So, but anyways, a joke, just so our viewers know, I don't
yeah.
enjoy the smell. Um, but it's just the environment, right? In the bar,
Exactly.
just The peace, the
Yeah,
quiet, the stillness, being around animals, the movement. It's it's
definitely.
it's so nice. Um, why is talk therapy not enough when we're stressed to help our nervous system?
Yeah, so I feel like now I can address a question like that more fully because, like I said, I'm doing a counseling diploma right now. And it just, especially what I'm learning right now, when I used to think back to just thinking about counseling, and I tried a counselor that it was just 100% talk therapy. Um, and that wasn't for me, but I just want to let our viewers know who might not know that that's not what counseling only is. Within the last, I mean, the counseling's been going on since the 18. Basically, counseling started with the philosophers in Greece, like way, 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 way back when, and it's been changed and added to. And now, like what they're teaching and what I'm learning is this idea of an integrated approach. So basically, they tell you and teach you all of the different models of counseling out there, and just kind of show like what part of them are all similar, some of them have differences, and what the research is showing that for counseling to be effective, it has to do with the things that are similar in all the different modalities, not the uniqueness of any specific modality. And the thing that they find that is the most similar is basically this connection between, therapist and client. And so basically it's just, that therapeutic relationship. And so what that means is just having somebody that's there for you, having somebody that's, warm, genuine, and that makes you feel safe to
Presence
explore
is
yourself.
critical.
Yeah, that presence. And so that's what they're finding. But, when you talk therapy to me means that you're just staying in your brain and you're just going through this cognition part of things. But as I stated earlier, for real change to happen, there has to be feelings, thinking, and doing involved. It has to be all three of those. One, can affect the other two, but it's not enough to really elicit change overall. So, from talk therapy, talking, yeah, you do need to talk. You 100% do need to talk and kind of think through certain things in your life, in the present moment, in the past, and what you want to do for the future. But at the same time, you need to be able to feel what's happening too. You need to be able to really get to know your body. As we talked before about, this whole part of the iceberg, your brain and your cognition is just the tip of the iceberg, and your body really has, a lot of stuff stored in it, um, that could be unconscious. And so how
Our
that
memory, like
presents.
before we can even remember, since we were little.
Exactly.
Because I've
Yeah.
seen people in EP sessions, and they're like, before their memory, before they can remember, their body keeps a score.
Hmm.
Their body
Exactly.
remembers. And I tell my parents that actually because they're older, and they're like, "Oh, my daughter will forget them," and I say they won't because my parents have such a profound relationship with my daughter. I'm like, her body will always remember. We remember
Hmm.
the good stuff and the bad stuff, but our body should hold them inside.
So like people might be wondering, what does that mean? And like, how do you know? Well, like one really like prevalent thing is like lots of people, kind of hold their shoulders tight, or you hold tension, in different parts of your body that if you don't know that you're doing it, you don't realize. But by bringing this awareness and working through like a somatic based process, maybe you start the session, like I like to start my sessions with a full body scan. So I just ask the client to, close their eyes or get comfortable. And we really lead you through, and you just bring awareness to every single spot on your body. And then, all the way down, all the way up, however you do it. and then that's when you're going to notice when maybe I'll say, relax your forehead, and then you kind of do, and you realize, wow, like I was really scrunched and I didn't know I was.
Exactly.
Relax your shoulders, and then you let them down, and that's you don't realize you're doing that, but that's where stress is stored. Maybe you might, and then you use your cognition to kind of talk into it. Sometimes you can give these different parts of your body a voice. Some people might say that, oh, that's so weird, I can't give parts of my body a voice. Well, just try it. Just see what the first thing that comes to your mind is, what comes out without even trying to think about it. And that's how we kind of can get to know what's in our bodies just by what comes out. It's kind of like that free association a little bit. You try not to use your brain and think about it. You try to just talk freely, even if it seems weird. But that's the unconscious trying to come out. So it could
It's
be
true.
holding tension. Yeah, it could be, when you're talking about something, a situation, and it's like, well, how does that make you feel? Like, is there something your body wants to do? Well, maybe your legs really want to like just go crazy and shake, shake, shake. That could be associated with like a flight response with wanting to get away, but you couldn't. Maybe, yeah, maybe you're a kid in school and your teacher is making you feel stupid because you asked a question, or somebody's making you feel stupid, and your legs just want to run, 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 but you can't. You're stuck there sitting in class. So that sort of thing's going to be stored, can be stored in your legs. And a way to express that is in a session just to let your legs shake and let them go and wobble for as long as they want. And people, after allowing that, they tend to feel this sense of release and the sense of you know, expansion in that area afterwards. So those are things that you can't just talk about, you have to actually do.
Hmm. Hmm. I
Mhm.
know, like at one point, my body was shaking um, for a good while, for a period, not just here a little bit, but for a while, like weeks. And after that, it was only when I went into sessions
Mm.
because it's like your nervous system starts to calm down. But when you go into sessions, it can, like, you're still processing it, right? Your
Mhm.
nervous system may calm, but you can still, there's always more to process, right? And yeah, so okay, all right. And that's why it's so important not just to do the mind for therapy, is to incorporate the body.
Mhm.
And that's how we help reason too, right? Is it's mind, body, and soul, like
Mhm.
combining all three. And just like I said, the naturopath just said, right? There can be multiple reasons, and they combined
Mhm.
can really intensify um, your body, right? And
Mhm.
your stress level and the impact of your health.
Another thing when you say soul now too, it brings to me like this fact of, generational things that happen to us that kind of get passed down like our lineage. Maybe it's not what you've experienced in your own lifetime, but what your parents experienced in their lifetime, that's kind of stored in their bodies. And then you get that from them in these unconscious ways. So, it can kind of go down lineages and everything too. So that's something you need to address and work through as well.
Yeah, genetic, because it's past trauma can be passed down. Like I know even the Catholic Church, we're do healing masses for generational stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so and science also says that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's there. What are the best nervous system first aid tools for when we are triggered in public?
So for me, so I guess when we're talking about this, probably a good spot to kind of bring up a little bit of science, not too sciencey, but just the way that our nervous system works. So when we're in this stress, It's called our sympathetic nervous system. We have kind of two different strands. So our sympathetic nervous system is what gets elevated in stress. That's kind of this fight or flight that, I'm sure most people have heard of. And so the whole point of that is, something triggers us in public or anywhere, and so our body, maybe it tenses up. Um, your heart can start racing, your breathing can get faster, your pupils can dilate, maybe you start like sweating. Those are all things that can happen. That's kind of how you know that this trigger is happening. And then to combat that is this other strand of our nervous system, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. And that, another way to call that is kind of the rest and digest. So being triggered in public triggers that sympathetic, and then the way to combat it is to try to find ways to get back into this parasympathetic nervous system. And so for me, the one of the biggest ways is with our breathing, because
Huge.
slowing down your breathing is something that triggers that parasympathetic, that rest and digest part of your nervous system. So one good toolkit, one of the most important in my life at least, is to kind of, place a hand and just, practice that deep breathing, really getting your diaphragm moving. In, that's what's really going to trigger it. You have special receptors in your lungs that they only really get triggered with an exceptionally deep breath. And that's what's going to, tell your body to go back into that parasympathetic, because what the sympathetic does is it makes your breathing shallow and rapid. So by, our breath is something we can consciously control, by telling it to slow down and deepen. That's going to actually trigger these other parts of our nervous system, to calm back down into parasympathetic. So for me, that's the biggest one.
Would you like to show an
Another,
example
yeah,
on me?
sure. So
Do you want to
yeah,
guide me?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. So yeah, like I said, sometimes it's good to use two hands, one up high and one a little bit lower. And so what you'd like to do, if it feels good, it's good to breathe in through your nose if you can, but you don't have to. Almost until you feel that pressure, and then just kind of release. You can release through your nose or your mouth, whatever feels. And you're not trying to strain, and you can, increase it gradually. I'd say at least a minimum of 10 breaths, trying to get them slower and deeper, and really paying focus. The reason we use our hands is so that you're kind of using two places in your body to bring your attention. So what this is doing is really just bringing you into your body, allowing connection and presence.
I can start to feel calmness in my body. My body start to relax. It definitely does bring
Mm-hmm.
me into my body more. I
Mm-hmm.
know when my daughter, she starts to cry and get all upset, that's the best thing that works for her is I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
her, breathe. And almost always she listens. And within very short time, sure, breathe. And normally she'll stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can impact all of us. That's
Mm-hmm.
why it's so important, the breathing. And if you're also out in public and you're finding yourself and you're starting to stress, I think the breathing is probably the best. But there's other grounding exercises you can do. You can just start to look to the left And look to the right. Very slowly. Start to move your eyes. Very slowly. Just left to the right. Left to the right. Very slowly. You can also pick an object in the room and start to ground yourself. What color is it? Ask yourself. Ask yourself what shape, what size, what texture. Is it small or heavy? Right? Grounding your feet into the earth, grounding your back against the chair, tapping just very slowly. Don't do this. That's not going to work. That's just going to get you more activated. Slow is the key.
Mhm.
Nice and
Or
slow.
rubbing.
Rubbing, yeah, rubbing your arms. Um, there's tapping, right? Just giving yourself a hug, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and don't worry what people think
Lot.
because go ahead.
Yeah, well, just it is great and important too because I know that there are lots of people out there that maybe they've had some sort of a like a lung infection or some sort of an issue with breathing. That although breathing is maybe one of the first go-tos because of that direct connection with the parasympathetic and sympathetic, I know that it is not possible for everybody. So what these other ones are doing is kind of getting us into the present moment. And like with the going left and right and with the crossing, what that's doing is getting, your left and right, you're activating both sides of your brain, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, by doing that cross body stuff. And then by looking all the way to the left and all the way to the right. And so that's really just kind of bringing your brain fully on. Because sometimes when we get stressed, it's just like one certain area of our brain is activated or stuck. And so by doing that, it actually helps to incorporate the whole brain. That's how it's helping. And then yeah, the whole grounding, just just really getting present in the present moment because what triggers are is generally something from the past is what's is what our attention is going to, or something, you hear a sound because something from before alerted you that a common sound like that can be dangerous. And so that's what these triggers are doing. So by really getting us into the present moment and by activating your entire brain, that's how you're going to be able to diffuse this. So one important thing that I'd really like to address right now is the importance of practicing these things when you're not in active
Well,
stress.
that's huge.
So that yeah, and just taking the time to just really practice these things and really sit and feel how it changes just in your normal everyday life, because that can be a form of self-care. Preparing for triggering situations when you're in a neutral situation is definitely a form of self-care and something
Resourcing
you can
every
do
day
for your
is a form of
body.
self-care. I encourage everyone
Hmm.
to do, right?
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
when the situation arises,
Yeah,
our
then
bodies will be able to do it a lot easier because we're basically training our body to be able to calm down, to feel that sense of peace.
Mhm.
When we're resourcing, it becomes more natural, easier to be
Yeah.
able to ground ourselves.
So you have a capacity, a higher capacity to be out in the world and to deal with these things and just be more confident in yourself. And in that way you'll be able to, get yourself out there and do more and, have just that higher sense of living.
Because it really does make a difference.
100%. Yeah.
And how do I build a self-care routine that lasts through the low points of the healing cycle?
Yeah, I'd say this kind of touches on what we just said,
It
that
does. That's true.
you need to build, yeah, you need to do it daily. And like we talked about these glimmers, it doesn't have to be a long time daily. 2 minutes a day, practicing, something that feels good. When we said resourcing, so just for people that don't know, resourcing is kind of like building the safety, like bringing safety, having your resource is having some form of safety for yourself in times when you don't feel safe. So really, yeah, just connecting to that safety, in embodied processing, something that we do, building a resource. I know for myself has to do with this um, imagined, beautiful place that brings me when I go to this place, my resource place, I close my eyes and I can be there almost immediately. For me, it is nature. It's being in like this natural hot spring.
Me too,
Uh,
always nature. I
yeah,
think that's for a lot of people.
yeah. You said running in nature for you is your thing. Mine's just like
Yeah.
chilling in a hot spring and listening. And like we said before, incorporating all of these senses. So for my strong resource, not only am I sitting and feeling this hot water around me and the cooler air on the outside, I'm looking and I'm seeing the steam rise up from the hot water into the colder air. I'm seeing, the vista around me. I'm just kind of like up on this mountain with like a river. I can hear the river below. I can always hear like various bird sounds around me. I can hear the sound of the water running. um, I can even smell, like for me, my sense of smell is like a little bit of like sulfur from the hot springs. It's like really strong cedar trees around me. And
And we
so
hear,
incorporating all of those,
yeah,
yeah,
same here, because it totally brings you
touch.
into your body.
Hmm.
And I
So
also
yeah.
have one that I'm in Northern Ontario, and I'm on a
Mm-hmm.
dock, and there's water all around, and Jesus is there. I That gives me a sense of peace and strength too. And again, yeah, it's noticing all your senses, right?
Yeah.
Incorporating it all and noticing what's happening in your body.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess too,
Yeah.
my dogs would give me a sense of safety and acceptance would be, and then Jesus, the same thing. It's all about safety.
100%. Yeah. So basically, taking that, 1 to 2 minutes a day, like coming back in, checking in on that place. But also, like we said before, your self care practice has to be scheduling this in your calendar or having certain times. Like for me, like lots of this I do right before bed. That's my time every single day because I know I can do it at that time every single day. And it's just having that consistency. I think consistency is key, because there's so many things in life that are not consistent. Life is such a roller coaster, but our self care practice for it to really be strong is just having that consistency, and then making sure that you stick with it and that you take out that time for yourself. So there's certain things you can do daily, and then there's certain things that you can do maybe weekly, certain things you can do monthly. Like there's different levels of different intensity that we can do, but it's just making sure that you keep that consistency
Oh,
for
it's so
yourself.
important. And if you may feel like I'm too busy for this, if you're too busy for this, it's going to catch up.
Mhm.
And then you won't be able to do near as much as you'd like to do, right?
Mhm.
It can really impact your life. That's why it's so important to take the small moments, even a few moments, everyone. Doesn't matter how busy you are, everyone can take a few moments a day. Just a drop in
Mhm.
the body, resource, do a few moments of self-care, and it will improve the quality of your life significantly. That's can have more of an impact on you than going to a therapy session if you're doing it every day. Because a therapy session is an hour once a week max. This is every day, doing little micro moments of changing your daily life that impact you long term and your family,
Exactly.
right? And then your daughter, my daughter, are learning healthy coping mechanisms, which are
Yeah.
so important because often when we're feeling stress, we go to unhealthy coping mechanisms. It could be drinking, it could be drugs, it could be social media, it could be our cell phones, it could be food is a big
Sugar.
one, right? I'm
Mhm.
stressed, I'm gonna
Yeah.
eat. I know I've gone to candy when I'm stressed. I like to
Yep.
eat candy. Um, but if we can, the more, and it's not okay, I'm gonna start here, I'm gonna do all this. It's starting very basic steps and it's
Yeah,
building blocks.
exactly.
And then you look back a year from later and you're like, whoa, look how far I've come.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's ripple effects. And it have ripple effects out. Um, and what are the red flags that our self-care has actually become an avoidance tactic?
Hmm. Yes, I think just, there's that line, there's such thing as too much of a good thing. I think that a red flag would be, if we're pushing ourselves to do it, or if it becomes like something that we need, that we can't function without, then I think that would be a red flag. So something that I can think of is like we said, self-care. Uh, hmm, how do I put this? Okay, so something like exercise or movement. It's kind of like we were saying about these coping mechanisms that, some of them might look good, but then we realize that they are coping mechanisms. So something that comes up with people is this exercise. So it's kind of can be like, for my own self-care, I need to take care of my health. And so that means I need to go out and exercise. And so it could be like, if that gets too intense, that your whole mind is wrapped up on, oh my goodness, I didn't exercise, like my whole life's going to end now, kind of thing, and it turns into more of a coping mechanism instead of a sense of self-care. So something like exercise, like people think it's a good thing, but sometimes it can be overdone.
And it can
Something
be
like
an
helping
addiction.
people, it can be turned into an addiction. Yeah. Something like helping people, it's like, oh, for my self-care, I need to think positively and help as many people as I can. But if you're not setting boundaries, then it's not self-care anymore. If you're pushing yourself too hard, and if it becomes an addiction, addiction means, something that you have to have, that the rest of your life, you know, turns detrimental because of this one thing,
A
then
break.
yeah, that's not self-care anymore. That's turned into maybe a coping mechanism or an addiction.
I know now I don't consider it an addiction. Um, but perfect example, I believe, would be when I was in my early 20s, I was feeling anxiety. And to cope, I went into weightlifting. And I was a gym rat. I was in there probably 2 hours a day. I ended up being able to bench press 180 pounds free weights.
Wow.
But it took a toll on my body. My joints,
Mm-hmm.
like my body, my muscles could do it. My joints couldn't. My body broke down.
Mm-hmm.
And another example is I was training for the Spartan race. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if they have that over there, but it's an obstacle course
Okay.
where you climb over walls, crawl through mud, go through tunnels, jump over buses.
Hmm.
And I had a tire, like a car tire, on my back, and I'd run up and down ski hills. Okay.
Hmm.
And as soon I had knee problems because of weightlifting from the past. So as soon as my knees started to hurt, I would stop. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I'm being safe here. But my ankles gave out. So I ended up having to walk around. I was out walking dogs and dog training, and I had to end up using crutches because that's how bad it got.
Wow.
And then I was still, a couple of weeks later, I still ran the race, but not as well as I had hoped. But
Yeah.
what was under that is I didn't know at the time, but I didn't feel good enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was pushing my body to the max because that's something my body has always served me. I've always been able to do that, but there was other areas in my life I didn't feel good enough, so I was forcing that up. So you look me,
Yeah.
but underneath it all, and I didn't know until I started doing EP deeply, is that a part of me did not feel good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
that would be a form of stress, a form of coping. And it's not a healthy coping. It is
Mm-hmm.
because why am I doing this behavior? trying to push yourself, prove yourself, is you don't need to prove yourself to anyone
Yeah.
because everyone has human worth. Everyone is equal. Doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, everyone is equal. And you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. Um, so yeah, so it's if you don't feel good enough, let's work with that. Let's not go out and try and prove yourself worth
Mhm.
by having a tire on your back and running up a ski hill, right? I didn't know at the time,
Yeah.
but looking back, I'm like, yeah, that's extreme behavior. Why was I doing that?
Yeah. So I guess anytime, the bottom line, anytime your self-care practice causes you more stress, it's not self-care
Yeah,
anymore.
or if
Yeah.
there's something extreme happening, maybe question it and be like,
Yeah.
well, why am I doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, okay, let's see here. As a practitioners, why is it vital for us to be honest about our own fire, our own stress? How does our own transparency give others permission to heal?
Yeah, so this is a very important thing, and it kind of goes along the lines of we can only help people go as far as we've gone, sort of thing. So if we're not taking care of our own stress and our own self-care, we can't help other people get there. That's why self-care is so important, that you need to fill your own cup before you can start filling other people's cups,
It's true.
basically. And another kind of part of this is that when we're in the helping position, sometimes our own values and our own, beliefs and our own limitations we can form biases. So we can project our own things onto the client, which, is not beneficial for the situation at all. Um, Being transparent and sometimes like self disclosure is important in certain instances where, if the client's going through something that we have previously gone through, we can, share our own takes on it. But that doesn't mean that, we should never be giving advice to clients. We should never be telling them how to live their lives or any of that sort of thing. I truly believe that everybody as individuals has their own story and their own differences, and they also have their own answers within them.
In them. That's right.
So it's
That's
so
right.
important to, yeah, to let the person, to help them come up with, their own answers,
Because
basically.
we have
And
our
so,
answers inside
mhm,
us. If we listen to our emotions and our mind and we bring it together,
mhm,
that helps bring reason.
yeah,
And then because
and we know
no
what's
one
best
else has
for
the
us.
experiences. No one else has the experiences. And someone in a counseling office can say, this is what's best. And they go home to their family or their house or whatever, and they don't even think about it. And if you listen to that advice, it can impact you possibly the rest of your life or can have a profound impact on you. And that's why it's so important to really look inside because only we can make our best advice, give
Yeah,
us the answers, right? Because only we are
exactly.
living our lives. But that doesn't mean we can't go for direction and advice. But I'd personally much rather go to someone I personally know and trust, who I
Hmm.
know has what I want. Because
Yeah,
that counselor, you don't know what their home life is like. You
exactly.
don't know what their life is like. And they may not know anything about that topic you're asking them for advice on,
Yeah.
right? So, and who knows how much they are invested or care about that situation. So that's why
Yeah.
it's so important to have a small group of people, yourself, and just listen to your body.
Hmm. And then, so for a practitioner or a counselor or whoever, they really need to get to know themselves in order to know, they need to know their own values, they need to know their own beliefs, they need to know their own, even culture.
How does shifting our perspective from I am weak for struggling to this is a shared human experience?
Um, yeah, so a shift in perspective. Um, One of my favorite quotes out there is by Dr. Wayne Dyer. He says, when you start to change the things you look at, the things you look at change. That might not be a direct quote, but something in that, when you start to change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And what that talks to is just like this change in perspective. We all create our own realities through our own senses. So we all perceive the world in our own way, but that doesn't mean that we can't, through awareness, start to see the world in a different way. Through empathy and compassion, we can start to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and see what they're experiencing. So it's so important to change, that self-talk that you have about yourself,
Hmm.
and reframe, your mindset. Sometimes I can have like huge, profound changes for people's whole lifestyle. Is maybe just taking a little shift. This thought of I am weak, any kind of negative self-talk. I'm not good enough. No one cares what I have to say. All of these things that people can say to themselves just by reframing that a little bit and just by questioning yourself. To me, I really think the main, the one thing that you really need for starting your own healing journey, for evolving yourself, is just to have this curiosity. Instead of having these absolute, I am this, I am that, kind of just turning it into what if, you know,
Being
what
curious.
if, yeah, just being curious. Instead of saying I am weak, just kind of say like, what if I tried, what if I fail, what if I succeed,
What's
and
the
looking
worst
at
thing
it
that could
that
happen?
way. Exactly,
Right?
what's the
Ask
worst that
yourself,
could
what's
happen?
the worst thing that could happen? If I tried this and I failed, what's the worst thing that could happen? Because
Hmm.
if you don't try, you automatically fail. If you
Exactly.
try and you fall and you get back up and you try again and you fall and you get back up and you try again, eventually you're going to get it,
Exactly.
right? And that's not failure. That's learning. That's experience.
Yeah.
How do we find inner peace?
Inner peace is going to be different for every single person. But another quote I like is something along the lines of, people depressed people are always worrying about the past, like what happened in the past. Anxious people are always worrying about what's going to happen in the future. And the only time, like, peaceful people are just in the present
In the
moment.
present.
Yeah. So, it's just like really trying to spend as much time as you can in that present moment. And what we've talked about is these grounding techniques, just really being in the present moment, slowing down in a busy life, going out into nature, just looking around you, looking at the detail of a leaf on a tree, um, just sitting in the grass, taking your shoes off. All of these ways we're slowing down and, we're connecting with nature. Go out for coffee with a friend and just listen to what they have to say and, speak truly about what you're feeling and just talk to each other, just connect with people. I
Connection
think
is
that's
huge.
just so huge.
Yes, and that's I guess too part of self-care is connection.
Hmm.
Abraham speaks about that a lot, is connection can bring healing, right? Community support. And
Hmm.
for inner peace, I really liked your answer. Also finding purpose in life.
Yes.
Purpose. Because if we can find purpose, even in our darkest moments, if we can find purpose in life, that can give us inner strength. And that can also give us
Hmm.
peace. And why is self-care so important, especially when we are on our healing journeys?
Yeah, so like we talked about before, just life in general and even our healing journeys, it could be such a roller coaster. It's never linear. It's never going to be good, 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 getting better, great.
No, it's going to be
There's
like
always
this
going to be
sometimes. We're going to go down
peaks and
sometimes, and sometimes they're
valleys.
going to go up. It's never perfect.
Exactly. It's never perfect, and that's why having this sense of self-care, having consistency in your life, to worry about, the way you're thinking, feeling, and acting,
And being
just
self-aware.
yeah, and having just that consistency of trying to take care of your health, um, your wellness, your sleep, all of these things that we discussed today, having consistency towards taking care of yourself in those times, building up that resourcing and those, that toolkit of regulation tools and what to do in stressful or triggering situations, practicing that on a daily basis. All of that stuff, is gonna just make the valleys, those downtimes, much more bearable and just increase your capacity,
And
so that
shorter. They make them
yeah,
shorter, right?
exactly. So
Because
you
we
can
have
spend more time.
understanding, we have the capacity to be able to build it up. So when we can build our resources and our grounding techniques and have better understanding, when we do hit those hard times, it'll be less, possibly less severe
Hmm.
and shorter
Yeah. So it's like
because
building that resilience.
it is,
Yeah.
it
Resilience
is.
is so huge in life. That's what's going to keep you going. Um, because yeah, there's, one thing I love to tell my daughter all the time, and it's because she said it to me the one time. She says, "Oh, Miss Rachel says feelings change. Like your feelings are always going to change. They're never going to stay. You're never always going to stay happy, but you're never, you don't have to always stay sad. It's going to change." And building that resiliency and that capacity to be with the sad and that resiliency to bounce back towards, the happiness, joy, gratitude, that's kind of, you know, that's what's going to help you get there and stay there.
And if we didn't have both, we would never value the good, happy times.
Exactly.
And when we do struggle, that's when we can grow and we can build our resilience.
Yeah.
Because if it was always good all the time, we're not building our resilience.
Yeah. We're not growing. Exactly. You need those experiences to evolve and to learn from, like we said.
Mhm. Well, thank
Hmm.
you so much for joining. You gave a lot of great direction and advice today. Um, so
Yeah, I really love this talk. Yeah.
I did
It
too.
was great. Yeah.
Um, I invite all the viewers today to reflect and self-reflect and look internally inside and to listen to their nervous system and to go out and start to become curious about what their self-care looks like, what their nervous system is trying to tell your body because it is so important and you do not want to learn the hard way. Our information will be below if you're interested in having a session. We're happy to help you. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.